Okay, so hello to everyone again. And as you know, we just spent about a week doing some, self care and self knowledge and getting into our self love and things like that. So, Mike has been a huge asset to what I've been trying to do because I have so many questions and he seems to be able to find the answers in a way that I can understand them. So, I hope that it goes the same for you guys. So, I want to kind of go back to some of the things we talked about as far as we need to start to pay attention to ourselves. Like, what are our thoughts? Where are we placing our attention? Because where our attention goes, our energy flows. So I think most of you have heard this sentence like one way or another. But I've been we're listening to like a 4-part series, and it's by a guy named Joe Dispenza. He like in his beginning of his journey, he was huge in cycling. He was in a bad accident and he was told he would never walk. So it was at this point in his life where he's like, I'm not going to accept that as it is. And he actually healed his spine. He's walking. And now he's telling a story and he's really trying to get into the science as to how our brain works. And he gets a lot into like quantum physics and things like that. And that's so far above me. Mike would have a lot more information about that. But the question that rise for me in listening to this series is the fact that when we want to manifest something into our life or create something new, I understand the fact that, if we're stuck in our ways, we aren't open to knowing something new. And I understand the fact if we want to manifest something, we have to at least acknowledge what that thing is that we want to manifest. But his suggestion is then to now let go of everything, let go of our body, let go of all those senses in order to be able to create that. So I'm wondering if you, Mike, could help us a little bit with that, and maybe we can make some more sense of it.
Okay, well, the big thing is he's quite right on that part. Most of the time when somebody is trying to manifest something, they're very general in what it is they're trying to attract into their life. So one of the first and most important things is be very specific. A common example I see in my practice and in my life is majority of people want to attract a relationship or love into their life. So, hey, I want a man in my life or I want a woman in my life, and they leave it at that. Well, guess what? There's a chance for them to meet a new man or a new woman every single day, but it doesn't mean that they're the right fit for them. And then they end up falling into this common pattern of attracting the same type of partner into their life, which creates turmoil and stress and struggle and challenge. But if they actually sat down and said, I want a partner who, makes this much money, is compassionate, has, red hair, looks this way, likes to do these activities, and be more specific, then what you're doing is actually putting that vibration out into the world to say, this is exactly what I want. Because just saying I want a woman or I want a man in my life, well, you'll attract a woman or a man. But if you are more specific, you are basically putting that vibration within yourself, which then projects out into the world. And as we know, when we put out what it is we want, we actually are, it's almost like putting the call out into the universe to draw that thing into our life. And really to answer that your question is where most people get stuck is they think they know what it is they need to do in order to attract that thing into their life. So they're trying to actually control the outcome. And by controlling the outcome, they're actually missing the opportunities that are presenting themselves to them to actually bring that thing or that experience into their life because they're trying to control the outcome. So I'll use an example from my own personal life. When I first moved here to Sussex, New Brunswick, I ended up, I couldn't find a place to open my practice. None of the clinics in town had space available for me. So I had to start my own business. And at that time, the only space that was available was in the old shopping mall where there was, a little kind of flea market type business running in the old grocery store. I ended up in this really cold, secluded, in the back corner of the space. It was the old manager's office. And, for me, it was an opportunity to start. But the first 4 months I was here and the 4 months I was there, I was losing money left, right, and center because I wasn't getting the exposure that I needed in order to attract the clientele. So one night I said, this needs to change. And I set my intentions of what it was I was looking for. I wanted a clinic space or a storefront that was on the main street, that had extreme visibility, that had walking traffic, and just a place for me to actually be exposed to the people of the town here. That night, literally that night, Sylvie and I went for a walk. And it was that day that they had put the sign up in the store saying space for rent. I called them the next day and I signed the contract an hour later. And that was the first storefront that we had. But I wasn't putting out the expectations of it's going to happen this way. And I need it to happen this way. I just put it out there. This is what I'm looking for. And, for me, luckily enough, I'm in a place now where I manifest things pretty much instantaneously in my life because I put myself into a position where this is what I want, but I don't care how it comes to me. I need to be open and accepting of the people and the experiences that are coming into my life that will open those doors for me. That's really what he means by letting go of the outcome, putting it out there. This is what I want. I don't care how it manifests or how it comes into my life. And in reality, sometimes what it was I actually thought I wanted actually wasn't right. But by just stepping back and letting the process unfold, I actually, my initial desire changes and shifts to something that is actually more appropriate for what it is I actually need, and actually brings me, in the end, will actually bring me what it was I initially asked to manifest.
Mhm. That's really cool. So I wanted to look at an example of something and see if this would be a good example for those who have never done this before and have never really identified it in their own life, because literally everybody has had this happen several different times. But something that comes up to mind when you're saying this is let's say you buy a new car, and it's a car that no one has, right? So this happened to me. I got a 2018 Silver Equinox, and once I got mine, I started noticing so many in town that looked exactly the same. So putting it into that radar, that thought process, it means you start to notice, made me start to notice things. So
Correct.
I'm sure that would that work as an example for people to fit into their own life.
Yeah, well, very much. And it's, until that thing or that item or that person comes into our life, we don't see it out there because we're not really paying attention to it.
Mhm.
Right. So you put it out there, and you know what? Those silver equinoxes were always there.
Right,
It just wasn't in your reality to notice them.
right. So I like to use, because of your example, I like to use one that I just have gone through in the last few months. So when I got married, I was fit, just rocking, right? But at the time, my whole, process of wanting to look that way was because the goal I had was I wanted to look a certain way for my wedding, right? But
Mhm.
once the wedding came and gone, those desires, and I didn't need them anymore. I didn't care. So when COVID hit to probably May, I had gained 60 pounds. So just, and really the pounds started packing on last, so it was a year, I had
Mhm.
gained 60 pounds. And throughout that and starting to notice it and starting to feel self-conscious about it and all that stuff, that's when it's okay, I need to start working out again. I need to eat better. And that would work for a week. And then it's nah, I don't want to do that anymore. It's not working. It's not working. So anyways, back in May, once the bathing suits came out, it's you know what? It just is what it is. I don't even care. But I had a conversation with Caden, who was also one of the speakers last week. So anyways, he asked me, well, what is your goal? What do you want the goal to be? And I'm like, well, I don't really have a goal. I mean, I just want to look good in my bathing suit again. And he's like, no, I need you to tell me how much you want to weigh. And I was like, oh, okay, I'll like 140 would be nice. He's like, okay, well, what's the game plan? Like, what do you think your downfalls are? And I'm like, once he told me how much it was going to cost to actually do the program with him, I'm like, all right, I just give up. I'm just done. I'm okay with where I'm at. I'm gonna look all right in my bathing suit. I know that I'm working on myself, so I'm just gonna let this go the way it's gonna go. I let it go. Well, it wasn't until like the end of the summer where I realized my bathing suit's really loose, right? And since then, I have lost 30 pounds within just a few months. And I haven't had to put any thought into it. I mean, in working on my self-knowledge and like getting more education on, the things I should be putting in my body and stuff like that, it makes me think about what I put into my mouth and things like that. But I wasn't on a strict diet. I wasn't on anything. So I manifested this weight and let it go. And then it happened. So it's just another really good excuse of letting things go.
Well, because you stepped away from the process.
Right.
You were specific, and this is the ideal weight that I feel comfortable and that I feel healthy with. And then you just let the process unfold as it needed to, rather than being focused on counting the calories and watching what you eat and making sure you exercise 20 times a day and all that stuff. That stuff is very important for us, but a diet isn't how you lose weight.
No.
It's a lifestyle change. But you also put that thought out there and that energy out there saying, this is what I want. And you were confident in that and you were comfortable with that. Then, as I was saying before, you just kind of step back and let life happen.
Right. So what would be, I have my theory on what would block somebody from being able to do that. What is your description of why somebody isn't able to do that?
Because they haven't done their work. They haven't done the hard, well, not always hard, but for a lot of people it can be a challenging experience to look at the traumas, the unprocessed emotions, the experiences in their life that have created the situation they're in. This is a lot of what we call shadow work. So looking at the impact of their experiences and their traumas, and for most people, when they go through a traumatic experience, they just kind of bury it aside and try to forget about it. But that never happens. It never works that way. We're basically meant, when we file something away, it's meant to be, okay, I'll deal with this at a later time when I'm able to sit down and actually process it. But modern life just keeps throwing more and more stresses on us and more issues. So that inbox becomes quite full. So this is when people get stuck in those lower, denser, heavier vibrations. And it's impossible for us to manifest anything when we are in a low vibration. So a lot of manifestation becomes instantaneous or happens quickly when we start to learn to love and accept who we are, no matter where we are in life. We've all had our ups and downs. We all have the good things about us. We also have those things that we're not so proud of about ourselves. But when we come to terms with, okay, this is a part of me that, isn't the most pleasant, and I don't always like to show that, but I understand why that's there. And I can see that can actually be a useful tool when the situation calls for it, but I don't need to live my life in those lower vibrations. So as you start to live and hold yourself into these higher vibrational states of like love and acceptance and compassion, that's when manifestation will happen instantaneously. For me, I didn't always manifest things as quickly as I do now. But because I've done a lot of that inner work and I've understood the roots of, for me, a big thing in my life was overcoming selfishness. I used to be a selfish prick. There's no other way to put it. But once I understood where I learned those behaviors and why I learned those behaviors, It was easier for me to begin to change those behavioral patterns within myself and allow me to approach life from not that selfish place, but more of an all-encompassing and all-embracing place. And that helped me to stay in these higher vibrations. And once I'm in those higher vibrations, that's where the instantaneous manifestation occurs.
That's awesome. So I like to give a good example as to why do we get stuck in these places? So I have my own theory. I think it's because we focus a lot on the people, the places we need to go, the things that we're doing, the objects that we have, the objects that we want, and we don't get to have them. And we place blame or a scenario as to why that's what things are the way that they are. And it is one thing of acknowledging that that's why they are, letting it go, versus acknowledging that it is, but still allowing the thoughts to continue to go there over and over and over again.
Correct. So you have to recognize the patterns as they do come up. And once you start to recognize the pattern and its impact on your life, it's for most people, they are putting the blame on everything in their life on the external world, what's happening outside of them. It's only once we start to take responsibility for ourselves and our actions and our thoughts and what we've contributed to the situations that have occurred in our life. Once we start to do that, that's when we start to take that ownership and start to heal ourselves, because it's all about your vibration. If we expect something in the outside world to give us what we need, but we're not willing to do that for ourselves, won't manifest anything in our life. We'll just blame and think there's something wrong with me because, hey, this person can manifest whatever it is they want in their life, but why can't I? What's wrong with me? I'm broken. And then that keeps feeding that lower vibrational cycle that they get stuck in. So when they actually start to take that responsibility in their life and understand their contribution to the situations that have created trauma and struggle and pain in their life, that begins to free them from those lower vibrations and allow them to actually begin to attract in the things that actually support them. Most people who have problems manifesting is because they have that deep underlying belief that they're not worth it, that they don't deserve it, that they're not good enough. That alone keeps the manifesting vibration away. The moment you could say, hey, this is what I want in my life, and be so happy and positive about it, but then 10 minutes later say, oh, I'm not good enough, I don't deserve it, I'll never have that. Well, the second you say that, you've just shifted the whole vibration in that manifestation, and you are actually attracting not having that into your life, because that's what you truly believe deep inside of yourself.
I like that you mentioned that, because that's a big deal. Like if you're manifesting something, and whether you feel like you deserve it or not, but you feel like it's not happening fast enough, that's the same thing. You're throwing out there to those vibrations that it's not fast enough, so whatever. Like,
yeah, I don't deserve it. I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy. Who am I to ask for this, right?
Right. So it's boiling back down to the whole reason why I wanted to do the summit to begin with. And that was to start paying attention to yourself versus all of those other things. So I suggested, creating a list of the things that make you feel good and creating a list of the things that make you feel not so good. And my best advice is, because most of us have our phones glued to us one way, place or another, and we don't go anywhere without it. That's the best place to keep your list, because you can add to it wherever you are. But actually doing it is one thing. We got to do it in order to start identifying it. But when you start to identify those things, you can also, add on to that list and start identifying where your energy is going. It's great to know what you like and what you don't like, but you really need to start paying attention to where that energy is stuck at, so that we can move into this space of being able to manifest. So hopefully people can take some of this advice, but also know, so I'm the type of person that I like to look up this information and read about it and ask the questions. That's why we're here right now because I asked Mike the
Mhm.
question. He's like, yeah, we need to have a talk about this one.
Mm.
So there are people out there that are willing, like Mike, to have you come to them, and he can help you identify these things if you're in a place that you just don't know where to begin. So actually, I want to use this example. Mike gave us a free session, and the winner actually lives in England. So you don't even physically have to go and see you. You can have a session online. And she talked about some of the things he identified in her body and things that she wouldn't have ever even thought about if he hadn't identified them for her, and how they felt in her body and things like that. So it's really interesting. And I really hope that if you're feeling stuck, reach out to Mike and get some help there. Self-knowledge is the best thing ever.
Correct. Well, and it's the other important thing, because I'm sure a lot of the people who might listen to this have probably heard The Secret or watched the movie The Secret or read the book, right?
Yeah.
The Secret was good because it brought the concept of manifestation into the collective consciousness on a big level. But you know what? They left out the actual secret. They didn't tell you how to actually bring this stuff into your life. Making a vision board is great because it's that reminder of what it is you need, but that's not enough. You still need to take action. And that's where people get stuck, is they think, oh, I've made the vision board, I know what it is I want, but I'm not bringing it into my life, because you're not actually taking the steps to put yourself into a position to bring that stuff into your life. I had a friend long ago who would see me manifest what it was I wanted quite quickly. He says, okay, this is what I want, but then he would just sit back and wait, and couldn't understand why these things weren't happening for him, because he wasn't actually putting himself into a place and a position to meet the people and have the experiences that would actually put him in alignment with what it was he wanted. So taking action is actually the most important thing. And usually that action means overcoming the fear of failure or the fear of judgment from other people. Who cares what other people think about what it is you are trying to achieve? If you are in a place and what it is you are trying to attract and achieve is making you happy and putting you into a higher vibration and not causing harm to other people, go for it.
Exactly. I like how you said motion, because it reminds me of something I actually had written on my fridge for quite a while, and it was motion versus action. So that every time I was in the kitchen, I would see that and put into perspective whatever it is I'm working on. And usually we work on a few different things at the same time, but the motion is the idea. The motion is the vision board, but the action, what actions are you taking to get yourself in there? Those are the things we need to focus on. And so that's another thing. If you're somebody that needs a visual, write it on the mirror, put it on your phone. Like, so when you open up your phone, there's your message. My message on my phone says short-term sacrifice means long-term gain.
Yep. For me, I wouldn't have manifested that first the first business I owned here, when I left that flea market, had I not actually taken the action and gone looking. It's one thing for me to say this is what I want, but I still had to go out. I still had to look, see what was there, and I still had to make the phone call and go through the whole negotiation process. Exactly. Instead of just sitting back and waiting for someone to say, oh, here's a space, do you want it?
Right.
Because that's what a lot of people do, and that's not going to help you.
No. Well, this is great. I think this will help a lot of people, and I hope that you get some more people into the shop. It is a beautiful spot. You need to check it out for sure. All right. Thank you. I'm just going to shut this off here.